Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us is Stacey Littlefield, Master Herbalist with Redd Remedies and wonderful educator. And she is speaking on the topic of women's health and hormones. Thank you so much, Stacey, for being here with us this evening.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Me too.
All right. Okay. So I am gonna just dive into this conversation. Um, and as Elizabeth said, I'm going to be talking about women's health, hormones, and I'm really going to focus on the impact that chronic stress has on our hormones and our health overall. So in the beginning of the presentation, we're going to talk a lot about stress. So the stress response is a fundamental survival mechanism. We developed this survival mechanism, when we needed to run or fight for our lives. And it doesn't just help with that process. It also gets our immune systems ready to deal with wounds or to deal with infections from those wounds. So there's a lot of things going on during the stress response, and it affects pretty much every single system in our bodies. Now, our bodies are very well equipped to handle short, bursts of stress. So small doses of stress that come in minutes or hours. But when long-term or chronic stress occurs, so that's stress that remains over weeks, months, or even years, that kind of stress is damaging. It damages the brain, it damages the body, and it damages our overall health and well-being. And so there's been a lot of research just diving into why is this happening? Like, why is short-term stress so beneficial? And how is long-term stress causing so many health issues? And as the last 10, 15 years have gone by, we see more and more in the mainstream, particularly in the medical literature, where they're recognizing, stress, chronic stress is a risk factor for heart issues. It's a risk factor for cognitive issues. It's a risk factor for a lot of chronic health issues. Women's health and women's hormone balance are not shielded from the negative effects of chronic stress. It absolutely affects our hormone levels. It affects our female reproductive systems. And so it's something that women really need to pay attention to. And I think it's good that we all learn more about how it affects our bodies and how it affects our hormones. So what's interesting is that women experience stress differently and uniquely compared to men. Women have, we're more ready to acknowledge that stress is happening. We're more ready to say, yes, this is stressful, instead of just kind of ignoring it or pretending that it's not affecting us. We accept that. But on the flip side, we're far more likely to internalize that stress compared to men. And when we do that, when we internalize that stress, when we aren't able to manage it or to have healthy coping mechanisms in place, that leads more readily to physical and mental distress. So this is very timely because the American Psychological Association just released their Stress in America 2023 report. And this is an infographic from that report. And it's a comparison of men and women related to money and kind of family stress, and how men and women handle those things differently. And what I found very striking on this particular slide is related to the impacts of money-related stress. Women report feeling more consumed by their worries regarding money compared to men. 50% of women say this is a true statement. So they're not just worried about money, it is consuming their lives, it's consuming their daily activities, it's consuming the way that they feel. Women also say that, family responsibilities cause them more stress compared to their male counterparts. So in every single one of these parameters or questions that they asked in the survey, women are scoring higher than men. So it's, we experience our stress differently. And as I said, we're more open and ready to admit that, yes, this is stressful. And yes, I'm having a difficult time. And no, I don't have enough support to be able to handle these things. So beyond that, when we look at the physical symptoms of stress in women compared to men, there are many, many, many physical symptoms of stress that are more prevalent in women than they are in men. When we look at fatigue, 43% of women say they experience stress-related fatigue compared to 39% of men. 41% of women say that they experience stress-related headaches compared to 30% of men. Another big one is digestive issues. And that's one of the places where women are a little more unique in the way that they handle stress is it affects their digestive health. There are lots of digestive issues that are tied to stress. IBS is a really good example. Irritable bowel syndrome is very correlated with chronic stress. And over 80% of people that suffer with IBS are women. So we carry and hold our stress differently, and it's manifesting physically in different ways. So let's talk a little bit about like what's actually happening during the stress response. So the stress response is coordinated by two different systems in the body. The first system is called the sympathetic nervous system, or the SNS. And then the second system is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the HPA. And some of you are probably familiar with that term, the HPA axis. But that's the second stage of the stress response. So during the first stage, the SNS kind of mobilizes all of the energy and resources that our bodies need to fight or to flee. Some examples of this mobilization is increased blood flow to the muscles. We're diverting energy, so sugar is being diverted to the muscles and drawn away from our digestive systems. When we're fighting or running for our lives, we don't need to be focused on digesting our food. Our muscles need all of that energy. So those are some examples of things that happen in stage one. Stage two is the recovery phase. And this is where the HPA axis comes in. The HPA axis's job during the stress response is to help to protect us from the adverse effects of all of that mobilization. So there are prices that we pay every time we enter the fight or flight response. It costs us something. And those costs manifest in these physical issues, in these chronic health issues like chronic inflammation or emotional issues or a lack of sleep or brain fog. Those are the costs of the stress response, because the HPA, the goal of that stage two recovery is to maintain homeostasis or balance at all costs. So it doesn't really care how much it has to take away from other body systems to keep our blood pH level, to keep our body temperature level, for all of the things that we need in order to survive. Our bodies will rob from other systems to keep those things going. So that's why we see a lot of these stress-related health issues, because they do cost us something. Now, when we look at the stress response, every part and every step of the stress response are coordinated by hormones. In stage one, the hormone that coordinates and mobilizes in stage one is epinephrine, which used to be called adrenaline, but now we refer to it as epinephrine. In stage two, the recovery phase, cortisol is the main hormone that coordinates the recovery. And hormones are incredibly powerful signals in the body. Our cells and our tissues have a really difficult time ignoring them. They scream and they shout until they get their way, and they influence one another. If we think about, if you go back to your middle school biology days and you think about the endocrine system, which is the system responsible for releasing and controlling hormones, it's often referred to as a web. And it is very web-like. If one part of a web is broken, then it's not connected to the rest of the web. We've got a gap. And that's what happens with hormones. They influence one another, and they also influence other chemical signals like neurotransmitters. That's why stress can have emotional effects on us, because they're influencing, serotonin and GABA and dopamine. So they're all communicating with one another. And sometimes these messages get a little confusing or a little mixed up. And when we're talking about hormones, even having a little too much or just a tad not enough can result in major changes throughout the body. So if we think about imbalanced hormone levels, because I think a lot of women are focused on hormone balancing, particularly in certain stages of life, like menopause, or even, women dealing with irregular menstrual cycles. It's all goes back to chronic stress. Chronic stress is the most common cause of imbalanced hormone levels. So a lot of times, our hormones are going to fluctuate throughout the day, from week to week to month. And a lot of times those things will disappear. Now, there are some very serious medical conditions that can also cause hormonal imbalances, things like tumors on our adrenal glands or different types of brain tumors. I'm not talking about that type of hormonal imbalance. I'm really focused on the imbalances that are caused by the other hormones involved in our stress response, particularly cortisol. And if we look at chronic stress itself, we could view chronic stress as a hormonal imbalance, because what's happening is that our HPA axis, that recovery phase, it's always activated. It never turns off. And when that happens, our cortisol levels are abnormally elevated. So if we just take a really simple view of this, chronic stress is also a hormonal imbalance. And these hormonal imbalances can have significant effects on women's health. So anytime we're looking at a women's health issue, if it's an ovarian issue, if it's menopause, if it's PMS, the first thing we need to do to address those hormonal imbalances is to address the chronic stress. We have to do something about the stress first. Otherwise, those imbalances are always going to be there because of elevated cortisol. Of course, stress management needs to be a component of women's hormonal wellness. Now, I'm of the mind and of the opinion that you're not going to fix everything with a pill. There are things that we have to do outside of the supplements or medications that we take to really get our bodies back into balance. So some of the things that we can do to help manage our stress load and help manage stress include regular exercise. Regular exercise is one of the best things that you can do for stress. And just walking is enough to make improvements. No one's asking you to run a marathon, but if you do something every day for 20 to 30 minutes, you can make big changes in the way that stress is affecting you and the way that it's manifesting. Yoga is another great activity you can do. Deep breathing exercises. Sleep is really good for stress, but chronic stress will make sleep very elusive for a lot of us. And then, of course, our diet. the foods that we can eat can be stressors. If you're eating, bags of potato chips every day and just tons of sugar, that's stress on your body. So we want to eat a nice balanced diet that's full of, fresh fruits and vegetables. If you don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, then eat them any way that you can, frozen or canned. But we want to have access, or a nice healthy balanced diet with the least amount of processed foods possible, because processed foods create a lot of stress in our bodies. But when we're talking about dietary supplements and we're talking about botanicals, there are things that we can take to help our brains and bodies deal with stress. And there's an incredible group of botanicals called adaptogens. And adaptogens are fantastic ways to help balance hormone levels and to help protect our bodies from the negative effects of stress. So, adaptogens are botanical answers to help us cope with stress. So, in order to be classified as an adaptogen, botanicals have to meet a very certain group of criteria. So adaptogens are an elite class of botanicals. It's a very small class of botanicals. There are only about 15 known true adaptogens that have been identified. You might see people refer to a lot of botanicals as adaptogens, but many of them are adaptogen-like because they don't meet one of these criteria. The most important criteria in order to be classified as an adaptogen is that they enhance the state of resistance during stress. And that state of resistance is non-specific. So what that means is that it will work in every body system and it's normalizing. So if something is running low, adaptogens help to raise them up. If something is kind of running in overdrive, adaptogens will help to bring them down. So they're all stress protective and they don't disturb normal body functions. So if your blood pressure is normal, adaptogens aren't going to raise your blood pressure. They're only going to raise it if it's low. So they don't disturb normal body functions. Their whole goal is to get things back to normal, to get things back into balance. But I think the most important criteria in order to be classified as an adaptogen is that they're non-toxic. Now, what that means is that you can take any quantity for any period of time and it doesn't have any negative effects. Non-toxic is very different from safe. And you can use them over like a wide age range and a wide number of conditions. So adaptogens are really, really special botanicals, and I love them. I use them in as many formulas as I can because I just think they're so important to help us deal with stress, because everybody is dealing with chronic stress. I've yet to meet a person who has no stress in their life. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite adaptogens, just to give you an idea of what's out there and what their particular specialties are for. So when it comes to women and women's health, my absolute favorite adaptogen is called shatavari. Now, shatavari is Asparagus racemosus, and this is a botanical that is used in Ayurveda. And in Ayurveda, shatavari is the main female tonic. It is the female counterpart to ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is the main male tonic in Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, they give shatavari to women throughout their lives, throughout their reproductive cycles. They use shatavari to nourish the ovaries, to help strengthen reproductive health. They use it to promote balanced reproductive hormones. During menopause, it's used to help maintain libido. And in Ayurveda, shatavari is classified as a rasayana. So rasayanas are agents or botanicals that are used to rejuvenate, to renew body systems, to promote vitality and longevity, and to support immune system function. So when we look at Shatavari and what it's doing during times of stress, or specifically for women's health, because this is an adaptogen, it of course has anti-stress properties, but it's also neuroprotective, so it's protecting our brains and nervous systems. It's immunomodulatory, so it's balancing out the immune system, not just stimulating it, but pulling inflammation back down where it needs to be, boosting white blood cells where we need those to be. It's mood boosting. So if you're in a rut and you're feeling low, Shatavari can help to boost your mood. It's blood sugar balancing. It has wonderful antioxidant properties. And for women in particular, it's a galactagogue. Galactagogues support breast milk supply. So this is a really great botanical for women to use who are nursing or breastfeeding to help keep their breast milk supply up. Another one of my favorite adaptogens is Panax ginseng. Panax ginseng is the grandfather of all adaptogens. It is the original tonic botanical from traditional Chinese medicine. And listed on this slide are all of the stress protective effects of Panax ginseng. And you'll see on the coming slides, lots of different things that these botanicals are doing when we are under stress. So when we're under stress, Panax ginseng is a wonderful adaptogen for your cardiovascular system in particular. It is cardioprotective. It helps to maintain the elasticity of your arteries. It helps to balance blood pressure levels. It's anti-inflammatory. It's a great adaptogen if you are really focused on your heart health. Another super popular adaptogen right now is ashwagandha. I think ashwagandha has kind of exploded in popularity the last couple of years. But like I said, this is the main male adaptogen or tonic in Ayurveda. So they will use this a lot for men who are having hormonal issues with testosterone. But when we look for women, ashwagandha is a really great adaptogen for the thyroid to help balance thyroid hormone levels and support thyroid function. But again, ashwagandha has a lot of the same protective effects under stress. Ashwagandha is also cardioprotective. It protects the digestive system, normalizes the endocrine system. Really good for people who tend to run a little anxious or nervous when they get stressed out. So those are some of the unique things about ashwagandha. Another one of my favorite adaptogens is Schisandra berry. So Schisandra berry I love the most for emotional stress, because Schisandra berry can help build resistance to emotional stressors. So if you're someone who reacts emotionally under stress, or it easily kind of gets in a rut when you're under stress, then Schisandra is going to be a really good adaptogen for you to choose. They use Schisandra a lot in traditional Chinese medicine when people are anxious and nervous and also have trouble sleeping or have dream disturbed sleep, because it's very good at soothing the spirit, quieting the mind, and helping you regain control over your emotions. But again, like all of the other adaptogens, it has all of these protective qualities when we're under stress: neuroprotective, heart protective, liver protective. But if emotional strength is what you need, then Schisandra berry is the adaptogen that I usually recommend to people. So there are other nutrients or natural compounds that we can use for stress that are not botanicals. And another option for stress is another one of my absolute favorite ingredients. It's called lactium. Now, if you're vegan, this isn't going to be an option for you because this is isolated from milk. But if you are not vegan and you do consume animal products, then I encourage you to give this ingredient a try. This is, as I said, isolated from milk. Lactium is also known as alpha-casozepine. And what this bioactive peptide does is it interacts with the GABA A receptor. GABA is our main calming neurotransmitter in the body. Basically, what it's doing is it's just kind of hooking to that receptor like Velcro, and then that supports GABA's calming effects. It creates a feeling of serenity. The way I explain it to people is that when you take Lactium, you're confident in the chaos. It might be swirling around you, but you're steady. You know exactly what to do, and you show up in the way that you want to. You've got great emotional control when you use Lactium. The other great thing about Lactium is that it helps you sleep better. So not only is it going to reduce perceived stress, but you're going to sleep better when you use Lactium. And that's also the same with all of the botanical adaptogens. Over time, adaptogens do really well to help support a healthy sleep cycle. Lactium works a little bit faster than some of those adaptogens do. So for people who really need support now, Lactium is a great ingredient, and its effects are supported by 9 different human clinical trials. This is something that's been available in the European Union for the last 20 years. So while it's new to us in the United States, it's not new necessarily. It's been used throughout the EU for the last 20 years. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about stress and the things that we can take to help our brains and bodies cope with stress, adaptogens or nutrients like Lactium. So I'm going to dive into different, hormonal imbalance topics. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the thyroid. I think a lot of women are really interested in their thyroid health and their thyroid function, or concerned about their thyroid function, or maybe they don't understand exactly what the thyroid does. So if we look at the thyroid, hormonal imbalances can absolutely affect the thyroid and overall metabolism. And the biggest hormonal imbalance that affects your thyroid system, because it's a system, your thyroid gland does not operate in a vacuum. It's tied to your liver, it's tied to your brain. Chronic stress or even acute stress will affect your thyroid function. Short-term and long-term stress down regulates your thyroid function. It basically suppresses your thyroid function. Both T4 and T3 levels will decrease under stress. Cortisol, the hormone mediator for stage 2 of the stress response, inhibits the secretion of thyroid stimulating hormone. So cortisol is telling your thyroid, don't make any hormone right now. We need to focus on other things. Cortisol also reduces the conversion of inactive to active thyroid hormone. So the more T3 that we have in our bloodstreams, the higher our metabolism is, the more calories we're burning. Cortisol doesn't want us to burn calories. We just burn them fighting or running for our lives. We have to put back everything that we burned. So it's actually pushing down your metabolism. And chronic stress over time can lead to thyroid hormone resistance. Basically, cortisol disrupts thyroid hormone receptor sites, and it causes the thyroid hormone to bind very weakly. And if hormones bind weakly, then the hormone action is not very strong. So the hormone, it kind of gets suppressed, and the signal it's trying to communicate gets muffled, and our cells don't hear it very well. So our cells don't respond to the hormone. So those are all the things that chronic stress will do to the thyroid system itself. So if we're chronically stressed and our thyroid systems are being downregulated, that affects our female reproductive system. Thyroid function affects multiple sites of female reproduction. Disruption of the thyroid is associated with irregular periods or absence of periods. Thyroid function is tied to PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Hypothyroidism can cause premature ovarian insufficiency. It can cause infertility, and we know that thyroid function is very important to good pregnancy outcomes. So if you have thyroid issues, it can disrupt your pregnancy and lead to, preterm labor, low birth weight, lots of things like that. So our stress response, which is mediated by hormones, affects our thyroid system, which mediates by hormones. They're all connected together. So if you want to support your thyroid, first support chronic stress, protect your body from chronic stress. And then there are some very specific things that you can do, botanical and nutrient wise, to help support your entire thyroid system, not just your thyroid gland. So one of the main things that we can do for the thyroid is to keep our iodine levels healthy. I prefer kelp as a source of iodine, and I prefer kelp for a variety of reasons. Number one, it's renewable. It's a renewable food source of iodine. There is no shortage of kelp in the world. Some kelp forests might be disrupted in the Pacific Northwest, but overall, we've got lots of kelp. So it's renewable and it's sustainable. When we look at iodine salts like potassium iodide, those types of iodine ingredients have really toxic sources. The number one source of iodine salts like potassium iodide is wastewater from fracking. Most of that comes from the great state of Oklahoma. The second most common source of iodine salts is from natural gas or oil drilling and production. It is a waste product of gas and oil drilling, and they will isolate iodine from that waste product and then turn it into a supplement. It can also be mined out of the ground in Chile. So that's the number 3 source. But even that comes with some, issues or worries about heavy metal contaminants. It's a really dirty process to get that iodine out of the wastewater from fracking or from natural gas production. They actually have to burn sulfur as part of the process, and that's not good for the environment. So that's why I prefer kelp. It's just a better way to get iodine. Take some kelp supplements, eat some seaweed. You're going to get iodine. So that's the number one nutrient to help your body create thyroid hormone. The second is an amino acid called L-tyrosine. So iodine and L-tyrosine create the backbone of thyroid hormone. So we need those 2 nutrients to make hormone. But we can't stop there because we need to make sure that our cells can use the hormone that we're making. And that's when other nutrients come in. We need to go beyond the iodine and L-tyrosine and really give the body antioxidants, minerals, and liver support to help with conversion from inactive to active and to just help protect our thyroid glands in general. So zinc and selenium are crucial to help with the conversion of thyroid hormone to an active state. And N-acetylcysteine and resveratrol are 2 really good ingredients that have great antioxidant activity to help support the liver and protect the thyroid gland. So those are some things that you can do to support your entire thyroid system. The next topic I'm going to talk about is the menstrual cycle and PMS. And absolutely, we're talking about hormone imbalances when we're talking about PMS or our menstrual cycle. I think that every woman on this call has experienced a month where you were late and you didn't know why, but you happened to have a really bad month. You're super stressed. We've all experienced that. We know that stress can disrupt our menstrual cycles. So it can manifest in irregular periods or just completely absent periods. We see this a lot with younger female athletes. If they're super athletic in gymnasts, you see this where they'll not have a period because physically they're putting their bodies under a lot of stress. We can experience changes in length of the cycle. Now, particularly what stress will do is disrupt the luteal phase. and disrupt ovulation. It changes progesterone levels and estrogen levels, and so your body doesn't release any eggs. Now, again, the stress response is it's a survival mechanism, and if you're constantly under stress, that's going to signal to your female reproductive system, we're not ready to get pregnant yet. This is not a good time. So you're not going to release any eggs. Stress can also cause women to experience more painful periods. Stress actually amplifies pain signals. It makes our experience of pain worse. So if you're already experiencing painful periods, stress will make them even more painful. And when we look at PMS, stress increases the severity and frequency of PMS symptoms. Sleep disturbances, irritability and mood swings, cramping, like I said, that can make pain worse. Stress makes acne related to our menstrual cycles worse. It can increase breast tenderness and bloating. So all of those symptoms of PMS can be amplified by stress. And the way that that happens is that those stress hormones like cortisol interact with our neurotransmitters. And a lot of women are super, super sensitive to those interactions between our hormones and our neurotransmitters. And so those women experience PMS. So for some women, it's just irritating, but for others, it's debilitating. But there are things that we can do help balance out those hormones and help smooth out those interactions between hormones and neurotransmitters. So my favorite botanical specifically for the female reproductive system when it comes to balancing female hormones like progesterone, prolactin, estrogen, my favorite is chaste tree berry. So chaste tree is a small shrub that's native to Greece and Italy. You find it in the Mediterranean, and it has these little like dark brown, when they're harvested, they turn brown, peppery fruits. And so these fruits have been used for over 2,000 years. So an interesting story about this botanical and how it got its name. So it's called chaste tree berry. One of the main uses of chaste berries during the medieval time was for monks to use chaste berry so that they could uphold their vows of chastity. So in men, it actually reduces their libido. It suppresses their libido. That's where chaste tree got its name, because the monks would take it every day to keep, to help uphold their vows of chastity. So beyond that, chaste tree berry has a rich history for being used for different women's health conditions. It's a great botanical to help support breast health and ovarian health, and it's particularly beneficial in PMS. So when we look at the way that chaste tree berry works, the reason why I love it so much is that it's not just focused on a single hormone. This isn't just focused on progesterone or just focused on estrogen. It impacts the hypothalamus and the pituitary, which is your master control system. So it normalizes the secretion of multiple hormones at one time. It also regulates the dopamine system. So it has direct impact on our neurotransmitters. That's part of the way that it's so beneficial for PMS. And when we look at the studies that have been done on chaste tree berry for PMS, over 1,500 women have participated in these studies, and a third of those patients had a complete resolution of their PMS symptoms. They all went away. When we look at the remaining 2/3, 50%, 57% of the remaining 2/3 had significant improvement in their PMS symptoms. So the one thing you have to keep in mind with chaste tree berry is that it takes time. This isn't one of those botanicals that works in 2 days. We're influencing multiple hormones. We're trying to balance out hormone activity and hormone levels. That's going to take a few cycles. So this is something that requires consistency and daily use. So that's chaste tree berry. Another great botanical for women is from traditional Chinese medicine, and it's called Dong Quai, also known as Angelica sinensis. So Dong Quai is used as a female tonic in traditional Chinese medicine, and they use it to harmonize the female reproductive system, to harmonize the uterus and the ovaries with one another, and then harmonize that entire system with the rest of the body. So it activates blood circulation to nourish the uterus. When we look at traditional Chinese medicine and a lot of syndromes that result in women's health issues, they tie it back to a lack of nourishment to the uterus. So they're going to stimulate blood flow. It regulates the menstrual cycle. And Dong Quai is a great botanical for menstrual cramps. It actually relaxes smooth muscle tissue and the smooth muscle tissue of the uterus. It has its own anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties, so it's really good for period pain. So that's another one of my favorite botanicals for women. There are a couple other nutrients that are really important to the menstrual cycle, and then subsequently PMS. And one of them is vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 plays a really significant role in hormone function. It's involved in receptor activity. So it gets those receptor sites ready to interact with different steroid hormones, whether that's the adrenal hormones or the sex hormones. Vitamin B6 is just like, hey, wake up, someone's going to come talk to you in a minute. So when we look at vitamin B6 in the central nervous system, B6 is involved in multiple neurotransmitters from serotonin to GABA. So B6 is not only involved in mood and motivation, it's involved in sleep, because we don't make melatonin without serotonin, and we don't make serotonin without B6. B6 also has really specific benefits for PMS. This is one of those nutrients that has been studied in PMS, and those studies show us benefits over a wide range of symptoms, from irritability to breast tenderness to menstrual cramps. And they theorize that these benefits are likely related to B6's role in neurotransmitter production. But anytime you're supplementing with B6, you need to supplement with magnesium, because they need each other. So magnesium is beneficial for lots of different women's health issues, including PMS and a healthy menstrual cycle, but also your heart health, your brain function, your thyroid health. You need magnesium. But as I said, magnesium and B6 are partners. They need each other. Magnesium increases the cellular uptake of B6, and B6 increases cellular uptake of magnesium. So unless they have one another, neither one of them is getting in. They need to go as partners. So you should always take those two things together. Last kind of hormonal topic I'm going to talk about is menopause. So when we look at menopause, this is a transition. It is a transition that can last for 16, 17 years of a woman's life. So this isn't a snapshot. This is a really significant time of a woman's life. So it's a really challenging time because it involves so many changes. There are biological changes happening in our bodies. There are psychological changes happening with us. There are societal changes happening, how we're viewed in society, what our role is in society. And for a lot of cultures, those societal things are really negative. Especially here in the West, we don't revere age and wisdom. We revere youth and beauty. So when a woman enters menopause and they feel like they've kind of have lost a sense of who they are, and that alone is stressful. It's a really prolonged challenge to a woman's resilience to stress. So when we're thinking about the 3 stages of menopause, we spend the bulk of our time in perimenopause. That's where all the symptoms occur. That's when our estrogen levels start to decline. So while menopause is a natural and normal phase in our reproductive cycles, it is still a hormonal imbalance. During perimenopause, our hormone levels are just going roller coastery up and down, rapidly changing. And that has a lot of effects on our bodies, but that's super stressful too. And we know that the more stressed a woman is, the more severe her menopausal symptoms are going to be, especially those emotional symptoms like anxiety and mood changes, sleep issues. A lot of women experience insomnia and sleep disturbances during menopause. Stress will make those worse. Stress will make brain fog worse. It'll make hot flashes and night sweats more severe and intense. And of course, it's going to cause digestive issues. But thankfully, there are botanicals that we can use to help ease the menopausal transition and help ease some of those symptoms. It's not going to completely eliminate 100% of all your symptoms, but these botanicals will certainly put a dent in those symptoms. So these might be some botanicals that you are not super familiar with, and I'm happy to introduce you to these botanicals. So these are all Asian botanicals. These are all used particularly in Korean folk medicine. So the first one is called Sinantium wolfortii. And in Korea, they call this the silk plant. So it's a climbing vine that's found in the mountainous regions of Korea and in the forest edges of Japan. So traditionally, they use this for fatigue and energy, particularly to help women recover during the postpartum phase after they've had a baby. So they give it to women to help recover from pregnancy and labor and birth. They use it to help support the look of youthful skin because it helps to protect collagen. They use it to help support bones and muscles and healthy joints, healthy circulation, and heart health. Next one is called Angelica gigas, or Korean, or red angelica. So this is dong quai's cousin. It's related to dong quai, but it has a very different phytochemical profile. I don't know if you remember the picture on the dong quai slide. That plant had bright white flowers. Angelica gigas has these deep purple blooms. So it has a very different phytochemical profile. And it's particularly good at helping during the perimenopause phase to help kind of balance out the menstrual cycle. Because when we're in perimenopause, your cycle becomes very sporadic, it becomes very irregular, or it might last for 3 weeks. So all of these changes start happening. Angelica gigas is really good for that. It's also great for memory. So it's going to be good for brain fog and cognitive health during menopause, helps with those sleep issues that women experience, and it's really good at promoting calm. So when we look at the myriad of menopausal symptoms, Angelica gigas is really good for those emotional and behavioral symptoms that we experience. The last botanical is called Phlomis umbrosa, and they refer to this plant as fireweed because this one helps with hot flashes. So it helps to regulate body temperature control. They also use this for occasional minor pain, especially joint pain. And you might be surprised to learn that joint pain is a very common symptom of menopause. It is also really great for bone health, which is important to women in the postmenopause phase. So when you combine these three botanicals together, they work synergistically and they help to relieve 10 different menopausal symptoms: hot flashes and night sweats, vaginal dryness, dizziness, paresthesia, which is the super technical term for the feeling when your foot falls asleep. That's called paresthesia. Sleep issues, joint pain, skin sensations. A lot of women will experience itching or like just weird, like they feel like something's crawling on them, mood balance and anxiety. And these these effects of these three herbs, when they're combined, have been proven and are supported by human clinical trials. So we know this works for women during the menopausal transition. I like this group of three Korean botanicals because they address so many different menopausal symptoms. Botanicals like black cohosh or soy or red clover, those are great for hot flashes and night sweats, but they don't do anything for any of these other symptoms on the screen. Black cohosh doesn't really do anything for vaginal dryness. It certainly doesn't do anything for joint pain. So every woman's experience through the menopausal transition is going to be different and it's going to be unique. Not every woman has hot flashes. So I want to support as many women as possible with as many different symptoms as possible. So this is my favorite combination to help support women going through the menopausal transition. So as Elizabeth said at the top, I am a master herbalist and I do work for a dietary supplement company called Redd Remedies. So I just want to touch on some of our women's formulas that we have to offer. The first of which is Peaceful Mama. So Peaceful Mama is our stress support formula for all women that features lactium. So when we say all women, we mean all women in any life stage. That means women who are pregnant, women who are nursing, and every stage before, after, and in between. So if you're 18 years old or if you're 80 years old, you can get benefit from Peaceful Mama. I love this product. And just, a little side note for everyone that's on this Zoom, I give this to my dog for separation anxiety because lactium also will work with dogs. So that's just another use for this product. And he's a boy and it still works for him. So that's it's great. Men can take this too. If they want to take it, give it to them. It's going to help them de-stress and sleep better too. The second formula is called Rhythm and Flow. And Rhythm and Flow is our daily formula for hormone balance and healthy menstrual cycles. So this is a formula that you take every day and it works throughout the month to support hormone balance. It helps to prevent a wide range of cyclical PMS related issues. But Rhythm and Flow is also a great formula for ovarian health, for uterine function, and for breast health. So it has a lot of different applications. If we look at the ingredients, I'm going to go back up. You see the dong quai, you see the chaste tree berry, the B6 and the magnesium, but we also put some other botanicals in there like cleavers and dandelion to help your liver and your kidneys. So this is just a great formula for hormone balance for women who still have periods. Menowise is our newest women's health product, and this is our menopause formula. You see that blend of 3 Korean botanicals and also some shatavari. I was so excited to finally be able to use shatavari because it's one of my favorites. So Menowise, one product for the entire menopausal transition, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. So we take the guesswork out for you. You don't need to know what stage you're in. You just need to know that you're experiencing it. And Menowise is built specifically for menopausal women. So it's going to relieve 10 different menopausal symptoms. This is a hormone-free formula, and it's going to have support for chronic stress. And then finally, Thyroid Strong. So we do have a thyroid formula that is a holistic approach to thyroid balance. So we're addressing chronic stress, we're addressing the thyroid gland itself, and also support for healthy liver function because the health of your liver is tied to the health of your thyroid and vice versa. You need to support them both at the same time. So I hope this talk has been beneficial for you guys. I hope you all learned one thing. And Elizabeth, I don't know if people have any questions. I am happy to take any questions if people have them.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Fabulous presentation. Nicole has a question, not stress related, although do you have some insights on how chaste tree berry interacts with pregnancy hormones, specifically chances of becoming pregnant and carrying to full term and possibly postpartum?
Yeah, so chaste berry is a really good botanical to use to get your cycle back on track. So to help with progesterone and estrogen levels, but also to help with prolactin. So excessive prolactin can be disruptive to ovulation. So chaste berry can have an effect there. Now, here's what I'll say about chaste berry extract. There is a very particular dosage that has been shown to be the most beneficial and a very particular standardization. So you want to make sure the chaste tree berry that you're using is standardized for agnosides, and you need to use 225 milligrams a day. That dose at that standardization has the greatest consistency of benefit across studies. So chaste tree berry is something that you would use up until the point you conceive. You will stop then. It's not something you take while you're pregnant, but then you can resume it in the postpartum phase.
Perfect. Thank
Yep.
you.
Mhm.
And my sister and one of my best friends just gave birth a couple months ago, and one of them in particular was kind of having some issues with um rebalancing. So I will definitely suggest uh the chaste tree product. I can't remember you there's a blend that already has that in there, right?
Yeah, our rhythm and flow formula has chaste tree and dong quai and all kinds of goodies. So yeah. And if she's nursing, she could also use Peaceful Mama. I mean, just to get cortisol levels down. The other, I didn't say this, I mean, if people jumped off, the other really cool thing about lactium is babies make that in their own bodies. It's what makes them like milk drunk after they're done nursing. They
No
make it,
way.
yeah, they make it in their own bodies. That's how we know it's safe to use it while you're nursing because they're doing it on their own. That's how they discovered it. They wanted to know why the babies were so peaceful after they ate. And they discovered that because babies have a high level of trypsin, because their diets are 100% milk based, they need more trypsin to digest that milk. And in that digestion, they are creating lactium in their tummies. And that's what makes them so calm and they pass out. My son always passed out. I would have to wake him up, like, dude, you're eating. Like, so yeah.
Wow, so if everyone consumed lactium in the world, it would be a peaceful place.
It would be. I mean, we'd all be like, I'm ready. So, we'd all be sleeping well. It'd be great. It's one of my favorites. I love that ingredient. I'm so excited that we were able to work with it.
I have never heard about it. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I'm definitely gonna get me some of that rhythm and flow, and then definitely one of those and the peaceful mama for my sis. So that'll.
Yeah. Yep. It's great. It's great stuff.
Oh, thank you so much,
You're
Stacey.
so welcome.
You're such a treat to work with. I always learn so much, and everything that y'all do down there at Red Remedies. I mean, each one of your products is just um top notch, high quality. Y'all really care what you're putting out there, so it's very much
We
appreciated.
do. Yeah, we just, we want to help people, feel good. We all want to feel good, but the truth is that most of us don't. And so we create formulas that are going to help people feel better so that they can live the lives that they want to live. So that's why we're here. We're here to help.
Yay. Oh, we have a question. Could
Okay.
I take Could I take Shavardi and Chase Tree Berry at the same time?
Absolutely.
And symptoms of PCOS and ovarian ruptures. Ooh, that's actually a good
Ooh,
question I wanted to talk.
yeah. Okay, so shatavari and chaste berry can absolutely be used together. Shatavari is one of those botanicals that they will give to women throughout their reproductive cycle. They give it to women, to help with their breast milk supply. They will give it to women to help the labor process. So it's food. It's a really safe botanical. When it comes to PCOS, that's a really complex and complicated issue that involves a lot of different things. So absolutely pay attention to your thyroid health and your thyroid function. You should also take something to help support blood sugar balance because insulin and insulin activity is so heavily involved in PCOS. So you can use ingredients like we have a product called Crave Stop that has an ingredient called NC2 that is really great at lowering the glycemic impact of your food and thereby supporting healthy blood sugar levels and then healthy insulin activity. So you definitely want to do something for that. And you absolutely want to do something for stress. There's been a lot of research involved in cortisol's impact or the role that cortisol plays in PCOS. We know that cortisol will elevate prolactin levels, reduce progesterone levels, and cause some other disruptions that they haven't fully elucidated, but it does have impact on also estrogen activity. So do something about stress. So, and you can use all those things together at one time. I know it's a lot, but PCOS is one of the most challenging issues that women can deal with.
Yeah, there's so much involved, but
Yeah,
thank you for
yeah,
that.
you're very welcome.
Aw, Nicole said, "Thank you, Stacy."
Oh, you are quite welcome.
Yeah, I tend to have um I haven't been on um taking enough calcium because one of my lupus medications depletes my calcium.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't taking the amount that I needed, and I've noticed that my periods have gotten more intense. And one of the presenters last week had brought that up, and I was like, ding, ding, ding. This makes a lot of sense. But also with this, um, having these other herbs in there to help support an easier um, transition through the month. So I I don't feel like my body is overreacting.
Right. Yeah. And and lupus is so, autoimmune issue. Your immune system has a lot to do with your menstrual cycle too, because prostaglandins are hormone-like substances that are responsible for pain and inflammation, but they also are responsible for periods. We don't shed the lining of our uteruses without prostaglandins. And so a lot of times, women who experience PMS or menstrual cramps tend to have higher levels of prostaglandins. So when you have any immune system disruption, it's going to disrupt your menstrual cycle.
Whoa, mind blown.
Yeah, so your immune system plays a role in your period. So it's all connected. Now, like I said, nothing is happening in a vacuum. We every part of your body needs the other. So it's not just our bones connected. Our brains and our bodies are connected. Our immune systems and our uteruses are connected. It's all connected.
Wow. Oh, that is, well, that just shed so much light on a lot of things, and thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Yeah, I love the opportunity to get to speak to your customers and to provide some education for everybody. So thank you for the opportunity.
Of course, anytime, Stacy. It is such a treat, and we're gonna have Dan with us next month. I just forgot the date. June 6th, folks. So definitely tune back in with us
All
to
right.
have one of the lovely Redd Remedies folks educate us. So, well, Stacy, again, thank you so much. I I'm looking forward to the next time I get to work with you and everyone down there at Redd Remedies.
All right. Well, thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
All right.